Tommy with Elevation Every Weekend. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to give you 3 different examples of entry-level fat bikes. Anytime you use a term like budget, cheap, cost-effective, or value, it's always going to be highly subjective based on the individual's finances and their preferences for how much they'd like to spend on a bike. As a result, I have 3 examples of bikes that I feel can be considered entry-level, depending on a person's requirements or budget. These also happen to be 3 options that I own myself, and I'll explain the pros and cons to an entry-level bike at these 3 distinct price points. And as for these 3 specific bikes, they are certainly not the only examples of each at each price point, but because I actually own and have experience with all 3, I can speak to them in much more detail than just the hypothetical on this topic. There will of course be other examples out there that meet similar criteria on cost and performance. And down in the description below, I will link to a number of relevant videos that I've done in each of these bikes, in case you want to learn any more on the examples I have here. So first up, let's discuss the MONGOOSE Dolomite. This is a bike that comes in what I call the cheap range, ranging anywhere from about $250 to $400. It's about as low price as you can get for any new fat bike. It also happens to be the type of bike that attracts a lot of non-bike people who are looking to get their first fat bike, and that is of course due to the low price point and the fact that it's been widely available at various big box stores like Walmart, Sam's Club, and currently on Amazon. So instead of going right to the bike snob mindset and telling you it's horrible, don't buy it, I have a much more measured but honest viewpoint on this bike, having actually owned and ridden it a number of times. So here are the pros and cons based on my experience. Probably the primary and most obvious pro is the cost. It is very affordable and accessible. And about the only other pro I would say, and this is a subjective one, is it is a pretty good looking bike. However, with this bike, it is largely a get what you pay for scenario. As for the cons, this bike is extremely heavy. Based on my recollection in stock form, it was in the mid 40-pound range. This bike is kind of odd on the sizing, as it only comes in one size, which is kind of a one-size-fits-all scenario, which is not ideal for bikes. And to me, compared to other bikes, it feels like it's in that medium range. So if you're much smaller or larger than someone that rides a medium frame bike, it's probably not going to fit you properly. And as someone that prefers large bikes, it feels a little odd to me as well. The drivetrain, brakes, and accessory parts are all very poor. And while the 1x8 drivetrain is very simple to operate, the very limited range makes the heavy weight even more noticeable, especially if you're on a climb. The wheels and the stock tires are brutally heavy. There are no cutouts on the wheels, which happen to be about 100 millimeters wide, which is far wider than what's on most bikes these days. And the tires are no name, low end, extremely heavy wire bead tires. So as a result of the weight and the part spec, you will not get great performance out of this bike and will likely have reliability and durability concerns in the long term. I was, however, able to greatly improve my experience with this bike with just a couple adjustments. I added a much lighter, higher quality set of tires that I happen to have on hand, and that cut a significant amount of weight out of the bike, especially in the rolling resistance, which is exponential. And I also removed the unnecessary kickstand and reflectors, which also cut more unnecessary weight from the bike and made it much more enjoyable to ride. However, if you're buying this bike and you don't already have a higher end, high quality set of tires on hand to fit to it, and you need to buy them, you will quickly be approaching the next level in my entry level price point. So next up, we're in that $700 to $1,000 range, and here you're going to be looking at used fat bikes. A used fat bike can be a fantastic option, especially because for most people, these bikes will have really low miles as they don't get used particularly often or hard, as a lot of people will use a fat bike only as an occasional snow-only bike. There will be a huge range of fat bikes that meet this criteria. However, I'm going to focus on some attributes of my example, which is my 2014 Surly Pugsley. My 2014 Surly Pugsley has a quality steel frame and is an example of a bike you can still find under $1,000 in stock form today. I paid $640 for this bike 6 years ago, and the only upgrade I made was just a new set of tires, which wasn't necessary, but in my case it made the bike more fun to ride, a little lighter, and a better performer. Even with the inflation in bike prices over the last few years, I still see Pugsleys from this era regularly go for $700 to $800 in good condition and stock form. Even though these bikes are a little bit of an oddity with their offset rear hub design, it is one of the iconic bikes that started it all, and it is still very fun and highly capable for snow and dirt riding. These bikes are also highly versatile and durable and can be used for bike packing. So the main pros are this bike or something similar can yield great performance for somebody that's new to fat biking, and with a few upgrades over time, it can be an exceptional performer over the long term. And last but not least, the most expensive slot on my entry-level list. This $1,500 to $2,000 range is where a lot of people will end up when looking for their first fat bike, and that's especially if they want a a long-term quality bike. And obviously there are a wide range of selections here. You can get a well-made, modern spec bike that will typically also come with tubeless ready wheels and tires. And again, for many people, even avid cyclists who may be used to buying much more expensive bikes and other types of riding, this is where a lot of people end up when they're looking to buy a dedicated fat bike for their seasonal snow riding. So I'm going to focus a little bit more on my Borealis Flume, which really exemplifies this part of the segment. So while my personal bike does have a couple factory upgrades in the drivetrain and the wheel set that take it to an MSRP of about $2,250, the most base build in this Flume comes in at about $1,850. It features all quality name brand parts. At this price point, you get modern spec and components, especially in things like the drivetrain and the tubeless ready wheels. This is also a bike capable of adventuring, and from what I've seen, this is probably the bike that offers the most bang for the buck on the market today, especially when you consider that this bike often weighs 2 to 4 pounds less than its direct price point competitors, and even less than some fully carbon bikes out on the market too. So this bike is an example that could be an excellent platform to start with, even at the most basic build. And then again, over time, you can do upgrades and make it a truly exceptional performer worthy of many years of long-term use. So that is my take on some varied examples of entry-level fat bikes. If you happen to have one that fits in one of these categories that I did not mention, drop it down in the comments below so others can benefit from your personal experience as well. If you found this video helpful, drop a like down below. It really does help out the channel with the YouTube algorithm. And if you want to continue to follow my coming fat, adventure, and mountain bike content, subscribe now so you don't miss a thing. Lots more on the agenda, so stay tuned. Thanks a lot and have a great day.